for entertainment purposes only. And if you want true legal advice, contact your own lawyer.
The first lawsuit in Hartford, Connecticut, of 3 young ladies suing the basic athletic department and athletic association for transgenders running in women's events.
So the high school interscholastic federation that oversees high school athletics, right?
Well, it's the one it's called the Connecticut Association of Schools and the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference is who they're suing. And they're suing under Title IX. And they're suing saying it's not fair that transgenders, if you want to comment on this, 855-LAW-RADIO, again, 855-LAW-RADIO, men that claim they're women, and then someone's gonna say that's wrong that you said claim. Well, whatever. They're transgendering from a man to a woman. It's not fair that they run against these women because they're beating them so bad. Now here's what the situation here is. It's this one gal is Mitchell. Her name's Mitchell. She's basically one of the fastest runners in Connecticut, this gal. And she's a senior, and she continues to finish third behind 2 seniors who are transgenders that, wait for it, here it comes, wait for it. 15 girls state indoor and outdoor championship races since 2017. They are just blanketing and taking these 2 transgenders are taking these women's sports, and they're winning all the indoor-outdoor championship races.
And she says it's taking away scholarship opportunities, achievement opportunities in high school that would be helpful when she wants to apply to go to college. And she's quite concerned about this. I mean, there is a simple answer, but who knows if
actually, I don't know that there's no simple answer in this, but here's what their argument is under. Yeah. And you guys understand this because, Cal, you know sports, and so do you, Todd, is they're putting under Title IX, which is smart. What is Title IX? That's the equality of women in sports that basically came out and says there needs to be equality, because what was happening originally is the men's programs were getting more money, they were getting more scholarships, et cetera, et cetera. So they're arguing under Title IX because what is the transgenders argument going to be? It's under the Constitution, right?
Exactly. So the problem here is if you have this title which delineates between the born gender of an individual about where money goes for men's sports versus women's sports, and now you have a crossover. And I don't want to say crossover in terms of how the athlete identifies. If you have a person that was born in a way that most people would look and say, okay, you're born genetically as a male, but you identify as a female. I'm not commenting on that. What I'm pointing out is you may identify and you may be transitioning, but biologically, your body still has the same hormone levels as male athletes, the same testosterone levels as male athletes. If a female athlete, and this is where I think it's interesting, if a female athlete were tested after one of these races, and the female athlete was not transgender, but the test revealed chemically the same levels of testosterone in their blood as a transgender athlete had, they would immediately accuse that female athlete of doping.
Right.
Okay? And so this is where these individuals, the female athletes, have an argument in that we keep losing these races. I would be curious. We were talking on the break. I would be curious to know if, let's say, the female athlete that keeps coming in third, are her times in those races where she comes in third faster than the previous times she ran those races, such that she's actually running faster because she's running against faster competition?
Could be. The interesting thing about this, if I read it correctly, Fred, and I may not have, was that the transgenders still had all of their male body parts. In other words, they were functioning on dressed as women, but nonetheless biologically, in terms of all of their body parts and so on, were nonetheless still male.
That's my understanding. That is my understanding too.
That's an interesting twist to me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which makes sense if they're high school athletes. I don't know if if there is anything in the law if somebody wants to transition, if there's an age requirement or how old you have to be before that can start. But the fact of the matter is, traditionally, when you've had competition, I mean, going back to the history of man, when you've had competition, you can see how society tried to put forth a distinction between two different groups of people that could compete based upon folks that were typically bigger than the other. And the only one that historically has ever worked was based upon their gender. Okay, the women are going to be here, the men are going to be here, and they're going to compete against each other. Well, in today's day and age, and I could see it going this way, we have different ways to identify the characteristics for competition. And if it's not going to be men versus women, then fine. Just have it be genetic markers, and people can compete regardless of their born gender, but you have to be in a class that's consistent with your genetic marker, and these high school competitions clearly are not.
Or have a transgender category where have the men race against the men, the women race against the women, and the transgenders get to race against the other transgenders.
That could be as well.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what the courts. Believe me, this is in federal court. This is going to go to the Supreme Court
absolutely.
of Connecticut, and they're going to have to. No, it's federal court, so. It could go to the
and
Supreme
good
Court
for the
of
girl
United
for
States.
standing up and saying, listen, this may be the common trend, but it's putting me in an unfair place, just like prior Title IX, women were in an unfair place there as well. And I think it's pretty brave of her to do this in this political climate.
I agree.
The one concern or question I would have is with the argument that they're losing scholarships. And the reason why I raise that is, you know, if you don't win a race, if you don't come in first, second, or third, you can still look and have your times posted. I remember when I ran track in college, I ran the 400 meter, and they had the fastest times for the 400 meter listed out there. And obviously the person who ran the fastest time won that race, right? But the second fastest time, you didn't know if they ran that race, if they won it, or if they were just the person that came in second in that race. But you press the fastest times for the entire season. Who ran it the fastest this season? And if this person here came in third, but they still ran a time that was pretty dang fast, I would find it hard to believe that any college would look at that and go, boy, you ran the fastest time that's ever been run by you in that race, but we're not going to bring you in because you didn't place first.
But you know what, though? You're assuming a fact, not an evidence, counsel.
That's true.
The fact is you're not, so far to my knowledge, it hasn't hit the NCAA yet, or colleges. But if it hits the NCAA colleges, then are they going to start recruiting transgenders?
That's the question.
Could
That
be.
is the ultimate. That's where all this was leading, and that's why I'm saying why not simply have a different transgender category?
Because they're going to run into an issue with testing.
But the law may not allow that yet.
They're going to run into an issue with testing for these doping agencies that test for the Olympics.
Right.
If you're competing in the women's category and your hormone levels are this, which is significantly higher, I don't know that it's going to be a defense to say, yeah, but I'm transgender.
But here's the interesting thing is I knew this was coming when I first saw it, and I'm saying here it comes, and here's the first one in Connecticut.
Yep.
This is something I'm interested in because I think it's going to two competing, arguments with constitutional issues and Title IX issues, even maybe constitutional issues within that Title IX are going to clash.
You can't raise the issue initially the way it was first raised about equality without understanding that this hitch in the giddy-up is something that's going to come up.
And the scientific argument lays on top of that, probably, if the truth were told going forward.
I don't know.
Go to the website, radiolawtalk.com. That's radiolawtalk.com.